UFC President Dana White announced the lineup for UFC 306 at the Sphere. And I got to be honest, it's a bit underwhelming. And this was the type of card that we thought the UFC could put together. And you got to think of the context here that this is going to be the first event ever at the Sphere. And they're putting on, in my opinion, a very average pay-per-view card. And that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. My name is James Lynch, so you can see it there. Sean O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili, Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko. We knew that was going to happen. And Diego Lopez and Brian Ortega. Dana White was on record at UFC 303 with this quote, and I have it here, saying that 306 at the Sphere will make the NHL draft look like kids playing with crayons, referring to sort of the optics and all the cool stuff that they're going to be doing at the Sphere. And he could very well just be talking about the production. And I have no doubt the UFC is going to pull out all the stops to make this card look really cool. We know the Sphere's got a lot of video stuff there. I was actually at the NHL draft. I mean, the potential of what the UFC can do for this card is going to be amazing. I just think they could have put on a better card. And again, this goes back to something I harp about a lot on this channel, is that they're doing too many events. But this just looks like an average pay-per-view card. O'Malley and Dvalishvili is a great main event. I'm very happy to see this fight. I do wonder why it took so long to book this matchup, considering both fighters have been off for a while. I kind of feel like the UFC was trying to do something else, whether it was McGregor or maybe Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria. That's why this took so long. So again, I like this as a main event. I think it's fine. After this is where you kind of lose me a little bit. Grasso and Shevchenko is also a very good fight. I think people just want to see this put to rest. We want to see some new contenders. Grasso and Shevchenko has turned into the Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo of the women's flyweight division, in the sense that we just keep seeing them fight, and we just want a conclusion here. Is it going to be Shevchenko winning? Is it going to be Grasso? So I don't mind this fight either, but typically when they put a women's title fight on a card, it's because they're trying to support the rest of the event, and that's clearly what they're doing. They're really banking on O'Malley being a star for them and selling a lot of tickets, and the fact that it's going to be at the Sphere, it's going to be a sort of a novelty. You've got Rolando Rodriguez and Ode Osborne. Is that a pay-per-view worthy fight? No, it isn't, in my opinion. You got Brian Ortega and Diego Lopez. I love that fight. I kind of feel bad for Diego Lopez. Like, why did we go through this entire thing at UFC 303 to get Dan Ige to fight Lopez if you're not going to just do a completely different fight? Like, I think rankings wise, it makes sense. Ortega's ranked number 3. Lopez still needs that big signature win on his resume. But I just also feel like, again, we have to go through the Dan Ige fight. What if Lopez would have lost that fight? He probably wouldn't have got this opportunity, right? So I just think that, again, I'm happy to see the fight booked with a full camp. Hopefully Ortega can make 145. That was obviously an issue with the short notice fight that they put together at 303. It's just, again, like, this is a fight where, I don't know, I have sort of mixed reactions to it. Like, I'm excited to see it, but I also feel like Diego Lopez should get a bit of credit for fighting Dan Ige when he had nothing to gain from that fight. Ige had everything to gain. 3 hours notice. He's fighting in, lives in Las Vegas. He had everything to gain from that. So that's sort of what I think there. And then you got Zellhuber and Robivox. Going to be a great fight. Again, is that a pay-per-view worthy fight? In my opinion, I don't think it is. And then the undercard, it is what it is. Aldana, Dumont. You got Manel Torres, obviously Raul Rosas Jr. is on this card too, fighting Orichi Lang, which will be a good step up for him. But I don't know, this kind of feels like an average event to me. Like again, they've done 300 earlier this year. That was obviously every fight on the card being a main event, which I would agree with, and that card was great. And then you had 303, which, all things considered, with Conor being out, ended up being a pretty good card. But again, there was some stuff that I didn't like about that, and I talked about that as well. And now this card, again, just kind of feels like an average pay-per-view. And I guess the reason I'm being critical here with the UFC, and I will give the UFC credit when they make good moves. I've definitely done that in videos here, but today I'm going to be a little bit more critical. This is your first event at the Sphere, and to me, it doesn't have any sort of sizzle. Again, there's some good fights on here, but I just feel like this is something they're kind of just trying to strap together here. In terms of the matchups. Let me know what you think in the comments, by the way. Do you think I'm being too harsh here? I don't know. I just expected for a Sphere event, there would be something bigger. I considered going to cover this card. I'm definitely not going to be covering this card now. There's just not a lot of star power on here. And again, I know they're going heavy on the Mexican fighters. I understand that, but I expected a little bit more. They're doing 10 fights. I actually don't mind the 10 fights on the card. I think they do too many fights on every pay-per-view as it is. Get more quality, less quantity. That type of thing. So that's completely fine with me. So optically, not a big fan of this pay-per-view. Of course, I'm going to watch it. Of course, it's a good card. To me, it looks fairly average, though. I'm not going to say it's a bad card, but it's not one of those cards that I think is going to be memorable at the end of the day. Let's go through a couple of the fights on here, and I'll give you my early picks and predictions, and then we'll kind of wrap up this video. So in the main event, if you guys have been following my channel for a while, I've been very, very high on Merab Dvalishvili. I've been picking him in all of his fights. I picked him against Petr Yan, picked him against Cejudo. I think O'Malley might be his kryptonite. And the reason I say that is, if you go back a couple fights ago to the fight with Marlon Moraes, it's more than a couple fights ago. When did he fight Moraes? It was a couple years ago. Moraes obviously retired at this point. But the one thing I remember about that fight, and that was back in 2021, he got hit a lot in that fight. And Maurice's got some serious power, and he actually, you know, he rocked Dvalishvili in that fight. I just wonder over 5 rounds if O'Malley can land that signature shot, if he can finish Merab. Now, obviously, Merab has the ability to not only wear you out for 5 rounds and out wrestle you, but he also, you know, again, has got some power himself. But I just wonder if O'Malley is able to catch him here. Can he knock him out? I think it's possible. And look at the height and reach, difference here. 5'11 to 5'6, 72 to 68. I tend to think O'Malley, who's even a little bit younger here, could probably do that. So right now, I mean, I'll have to do a deep dive on this one. This will definitely be part of my early look preview that I do. Right now, I'm going Sean O'Malley by knockout. I just think he's got 5 rounds to knock out Merab. I think it's entirely possible. Could I see Merab grounding him out to a decision? Absolutely. But this just seems like a bad style matchup here for Merab in terms of fighting a power puncher. If you look who Merab has fought the last couple fights, not really power guys, right? Cejudo's got a bit of power. He has some knockouts, but I wouldn't really consider him that. He's more of a wrestler. Jan's sort of an all-rounded, well-rounded fighter. Again, not a ton of power there. Aldo had power. I would say that power's kind of gone away a little bit. So really, he hasn't fought. I mean, I would say this is the biggest power puncher that he's fought in his career. And O'Malley, as we saw him knock out his teammate, Aljamain Sterling, he certainly does have some power. So the pick there is going to be O'Malley. Grasso and Shevchenko, it's a tough one for me. Their last fight, I kind of feel like Shevchenko edged that one out, although I got to go back and watch that again. Grasso's a little bit younger. My concern for this fight is Valentina willing to accept that in the first fight and even in the second fight, Grasso was having success? If she's not willing to acknowledge that, I think Grasso probably wins. I think you have to go back to the drawing board and fix some things. Right now, I'm kind of leaning Grasso a decision again, although I did think Shevchenko looked good in that last fight. So again, this is another fight I'll do a bit more of a deep dive in closer to the fight date, but my head right now is leaning Alexa Grasso with the decision. I don't really care too much with the Rodriguez-Osborne fight. Is Osborne even coming off a win? I'm trying to remember. I feel like he's not. Yeah, he's coming off back-to-back losses, and now he gets a spot. And listen, I like Ode Osborne, really nice guy. Actually, one of my favorite fighters to interview, but him getting a main card pay-per-view slot at this point. I know it's more about Rodriguez here, but again, I don't really agree with that. As far as Ortega and Lopez, I'm going to stick with the pick I had last time, and that is Diego Lopez. I think this guy's the real deal. I know some people were critical of his third round against Dan Ige, forgetting that Dan Ige and him both decided to agree to this fight on 3 hours notice. I don't think you can take too much away from that last fight at all, just with the circumstances. So I just think overall, I think Lopez, he's younger. Again, doesn't seem to have as much trouble making the weight. He's going to be a little bit bigger in this fight, 5'11 and 72.5 inch reach. I think Lopez could keep this on the feet and outstrike Ortega over the 3 rounds. I don't think they mess around at all on the ground because I think they both kind of cancel each other out. You could even argue maybe Ortega's got the better ground game there, but my early pick on this one might be Lopez. And this is only a 3-round fight. This is a fight that should be 5 rounds in my opinion. Very, very big implications for the featherweight division. This, I guess they can't because they've got the 2 5-round fights with the main and co-main event, but that's one I would kind of look at as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts on some of these fights. Again, I will do early look previews on all of these matchups in the coming weeks, but yeah, just my overall thoughts are, I think this is a good pay-per-view. I don't think it's a great pay-per-view, and I think when you're going to the Sphere for the first time, it's got to be a great pay-per-view, and I just think, again, I know their hands are tied behind their backs because they have all these other commitments to other markets and other cards, but this is one where, I got to be honest, I expect a little bit more from the UFC, but at the same time, I kind of predicted this is what they would pull out because they're very much relying on O'Malley's star power and relying on the consumer to buy this card because of the novelty of the Sphere. So, I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think this card, what do you rate it out of 10? Right now, I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10. I think this could be a better card personally. Like I said, good card, not great card. Let me know what you think and what are some of your early picks on this card. Would love to hear your predictions on that too. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.